So this is going to be a review for the series finale, season 4, episode 8 of Barry. It's also going to be my general thoughts of the overall series in general. So this video is going to be filled with spoilers. So if you have never seen Barry before, I highly recommend that you go do that, unless you don't care, in which case that's fine. Or you can just put the video on mute and let it play and help me out in the algorithm. Whatever you guys want to do with your lives, that's fine with me. Now, I did make a review of the first 3 seasons of Barry. I binged the first 3 seasons all at once, and I made a review video for that, so that I will link down below in the description if you want to get sort of more of my thoughts on the first 3 seasons. Season 4 was the first one that I was able to watch as it was coming out week to week. I will say, just kind of right off the bat, and remember, I'm just coming off the final episode like just now. I just watched it. I haven't had enough time to like really think and reflect on it or watch it again or anything. This is just like first initial thoughts. First of all, I'll just say that I did like the series finale. It was a lot different from how I was expecting it to go, but there are a lot of things in it that I loved. I think the only thing that brings it down for me and what brought down season 4 in general is that it wasn't quite on the level of season 3, in my opinion. I thought season 1, 2, and 3 just got better and better. I think 4 is a little bit more of a mixed bag, but it does have some really peak moments. And overall, I think the entire show is absolutely fantastic from start to finish. And I really liked a lot of things that happened in this last episode. But I think at this point, until I go back and maybe rewatch it or rethink on a couple of things, I do think that season 3 was my favorite, and it was my favorite version of Barry because he was just getting more and more unhinged, and you just saw how dangerous and horrible of a person he actually was, but the constant justification of why he would do everything that he would do and how far he would take it. And then in season 4, they added more ideas of him getting involved with like religion and believing, what was the path that God wanted him to go on and justifying his decision because of that, or praying that he would survive this situation, and then he does. And so he thinks that that's the reason why, is that God wanted him to be redeemed, which is really, really scary when you think about it. Anytime somebody with that psychotic of a mindset believes that they have divine authority on their side, that God is on their side, even though they are a like blatant murderer doing horrible things, it makes it that much more terrifying. But I think one of the cool things about this episode in general was that it dealt a lot with people's perception of themselves and also how people perceive you and what is the truth that lies within there. I think there's a great speech that Fuches gives Hank about being honest and being true to himself and saying, what he really did and just admitting it. He even has this moment. They have this great standoff. I guess I'll just kind of go through the episode. So in the beginning of the episode, Hank has Sarah and Barry's child, and he says for Barry to get there, to come rescue them, basically. And then he calls Fuches, saying that I'm going to deliver you Barry. He's going to be coming here. So we're expecting Barry to just go on this tirade and go in there with a bunch of guns and take them all out. But that's not how the situation goes. And I really like that it didn't go that way, because I had this vibe a little bit that cliffhanger of, oh, I have your woman and your child, come get them. It just felt like a little bit too much like a cliche movie that you would see, right? Which is even more ironic when we get to the end of this episode. It just seemed something that Barry wouldn't do. Not the Barry character, he would definitely go in and do that, but it seemed like something the show wouldn't do. It seemed a little too simplistic. It seemed a little bit too action movie. Like, it just didn't really seem like that's how the finale should go. And thankfully, the writing and the quality of the show didn't allow it to go that way, because before Barry even gets there, there's this confrontation between Hank and Fuches. And Fuches is saying, like, while he was in prison, he really had to come to terms with who he was and the things that he did, and just kind of accepting himself, and that Hank here can't even admit what he did to Cristobal, and that there was reasons behind it, and it had to happen, and I loved him and all this stuff. Well, you have to basically kind of come to terms with this horrible thing that you did. So we have this moment where Fuches is pushing Hank to admit what he did and to be honest with himself. And then that entire scene just kind of collides and coalesces into this massive shootout that is done in one take. And I love one take long shots with steady cams. I don't know. There's something about it that I've always appreciated. Like the more things that you can do in one single shot of a camera, the more impressed I am by it. I hate scenes that are just like constantly quick cut editing. Like every 5 seconds there's another cut. I even hate YouTube videos that are like that. You know, like the people that, no offense, I'm not throwing shade at anybody in particular, but you know how there's some YouTube videos that like every 2 seconds there's a cut, and it's just like, bro, like learn to talk, man. I don't know what to tell you. I screw up all the time. Maybe that's why my videos suck. Maybe it's because they're all filled with ums and ahs and I don't jump cut. I don't know what it is. But when Fuches shoots Hank, that's when the shootout happens and everybody begins firing at each other. It's just like one of those classic Mexican standoffs, and in one fell swoop, everybody goes down. I love how Fuches has like 3 guys with a little bit of heavy artillery kind of still alive in the background, but one of Hank's guys that fell to the ground takes out a grenade, chucks it, and in the same shot, those guys get blown apart. And in the same shot, Fuches runs over to protect Barry's child and then gets him out of the room, and it's all done in one take, and it's just like everybody's dead and Barry's not even there yet. It was just one of those moments that really took you by surprise. It was a moment, you know, you got to see Hank kind of, he's dying against the statue and holding Cristobal's hand and everything. It was a great shot. And there's this moment with Fuches. Like, Fuches, again, is not a good person, and he knows this and he accepts this. But there's an interesting idea in this episode with the hope of the next generation where it comes down to Barry's child. He's protecting Barry's child, kind of like he became this father figure, mentor figure to Barry and manipulated him to do many different things. Now, Barry was already a psychologically damaged person, and you can't put the blame fully on Fuches. You can in certain particular situations, but I don't think that it's Fuches' fault alone that Barry ended up the way he did. That man has a ton of psychological issues that were never put in check, and then Fuches just used that to kind of maneuver him into, you know, the position that he wanted him to be in. But those problems were always there from the get-go. Now, when it comes to Barry's child, I think it's a little bit of a redemption for Fuches, because he delivers Barry's child back to Barry, gives him a look, and then leaves and decides that he's not going to kill him. And it was just sort of like a moment between the two characters where Fuches kind of understands what he did to Barry, and maybe the next generation, the next child, you know, his child, his blood, his kin, can go on a different path. And I thought that was really interesting with those two characters. Now, I would have wanted to see maybe a little bit more resolution with Fuches, because that is the last time that we see him, and he does leave the series alive. So, you know, who knows where his journey is going to end up as time moves forward. Then we have to talk about the stuff with Cousineau. So Cousineau here is being blamed for manipulating Barry into killing Janice, which is completely the opposite of what happened. Cousineau is in a horrible position that there's really no getting out of, and it all comes down to him. Now, I do think that he is a bit of a tragic character, especially with the finale of this episode and his legacy as a person, because he didn't do those things that he will be immortalized for doing. However, everybody will know his name now. He is going to be somebody that people will talk about, that people will know, which is something he could never actually do in his acting career, really, which is like a horrible irony. That this is what it took to make that happen. But there were so many chances and opportunities that he had to not let the situation get this bad. And yet, because of his own ego, because of needing to be that person, he brought himself into it a little bit. But I do also like how he was able to get vengeance for Janice in the end. Even if everyone's going to think that he was involved with it, he knows that he took out the guy that killed Janice. So he did get vengeance, even though it cost him his entire reputation, which, you know, again, in a weird kind of roundabout way, you know, immortalizes him as the same kind of person that it was going to immortalize Barry as. And I think that this all comes back to this idea of sensationalism in Hollywood and how like the media manipulates things and the way that we perceive things, which is really, really cool that the show kind of ended like this. I had an idea that the show was going to end with the Barry movie, that we were going to see the Barry movie in some way, shape, or form. I even kind of thought maybe the last scene would be like, we were watching the Barry movie the entire time. You know what I mean? Like the whole show was the Barry movie, which would be kind of crazy. They didn't quite go that route, but it's it's how the media plays with the perception, because we all are somehow like drawn into this drama of like the macabre, right? Like how many people are interested in all these like murderer documentaries and the Jeffrey Dahmer show and all of these things, where we take a horrible human being and put them up on a pedestal and never let anybody forget about them, and they become more popular and more famous than the people that spent their lives trying to take these people down, than the people that were quote unquote on the good side, right? Instead, we care more about the murderers and the killers and things like that. But also on the flip side, sometimes we also build up people that maybe are not particularly good people, but they fit a narrative that we need. And so those people are praised as heroes or praised as great people, while we kind of like ignore the bad parts of them. We ignore the skeletons in their closet. We sweep it under the rug, and we just showcase somebody as a hero because that's what people need at that point in time, or that's what, you know, Hollywood wants to show us. It's like they only want to show us, you know, the good side of something and not necessarily the bad side of something. So when it comes to the Barry movie that was eventually created, and the final scene of this show is Barry's son sitting down to watch the movie. You know, he hadn't seen it and he didn't know. And the messed up thing here too is also that, you know, he only knows one version of his father. He only knows the version after him and Sally left. And, you know, who raised him kind of like off on their own. He never saw the bad history. He only saw a dad like trying to do his best to raise him, right? So he's going to have a very different perception of Barry than all of his victims or anybody that was involved with him. You know, he only sees him as a dad that was killed, right? So the entire movie is built up kind of like an action hero movie about this guy that came back from war and was manipulated by his acting coach that was involved with a bunch of dark things that killed Janice. And, you know, Barry went to jail for the wrong reasons, and that's why he escaped. And he went to go rescue his wife and son, which is what his son would have saw, you know, without really realizing the full backstory and the full extent of everything. And basically now the person, Barry, is immortalized as a hero, and it was said he was buried with full honors, and Cousineau went to prison. So even though Cousineau got his revenge, you know, he's still going to be seen as this person that was involved with Janice's murder, like forever. And also Barry is going to be forever seen as this action hero, when really we saw like the depths of how like disgusting this person got and how many needless deaths that there were, how many people were killed in his wake. That the fact that he was a hitman, like all of these things that were swept under the rug, and that's how people are going to know him as. And I think there's a really interesting commentary there, because when we see movies that are based on a true story or based on like an American hero or something like that, like how much of that stuff is actually true and how much of it has been kind of rewritten, you know, in order to show them as a better person than they actually were. Or maybe just a person that we need to help inspire us at the time. And this is the interesting thing that I think the finale covers, is that I think because of that movie and because of Barry's child's perception of him, Barry's child is going to go on to be a better person. But he's going to be a better person because of the inspiration of his dad, but it's a false narrative and it's not real, you know? And this is like the messed up part about it that's so interesting, is that it's that kind of hope for the next generation. So his father was really a horrible murderer, but due to his own experience with him, which was good and positive, And like the movie's new script and new perception and new narrative of Barry, he's going to view him as this like American hero and want to like honor his legacy moving forward. At least that's the impression I got. Like from the final shot of him watching the movie, it's like you just got that feeling like, yeah, that's my dad. Like my dad's a hero. But that could ultimately only be good for the child. But like it's fake. So what's the better thing to do? Is the better thing to show the real story and sensationalize a murderer? Or is the better thing to do to change it and then make the murderer into a hero that could potentially inspire people to do better? So, and like that whole idea and that whole concept is just kind of crazy. And then when you think about Barry just as a whole, as a series, that it's a show about acting, it's a show about performance. It's like putting on an act, you know, pretending to be somebody that you're not, which is what the characters have always done. If you think about Barry and Sally in hiding, pretending to be people that they aren't, Cousineau himself pretending to be somebody he's not when he came back, you know, older and wiser and better and, you know, doing things for righteous reasons and then falling right back into who he was before. You know, it's all acting. It's all a performance. When you think about Hank, you know, kind of immortalizing Cristobal and not owning up to what he did. When you think about Fuches being the Raven before when he wasn't that guy, it's like every single piece of the puzzle is people acting. All of it's fake, you know? And it goes to the whole thing where like the entire show, you know, was faked for this movie that was made in the end. It's just like you're faking everything that happened. And yeah, there's something just really, really interesting about that. And I like it, and I'm sure there's more to dig out of it, and maybe I'm not expressing myself correctly, or maybe I'm not finding the right words to say about it, but there's just like something about the fabrication of everything, of all the movies that we watch, of the TV shows, of the documentaries, of everything. What we see of somebody isn't their true selves. You know, what people put on as a persona, you know, how much of it is actually them? How much do we actually know about them? You know, you only hear stories of particular people, and then you just take it as truth, and then you go on and then you tell the same stories, and you're like, oh yeah, this person did this. It's like, do you know? Like, you weren't in their lives. You didn't have any evidence of them. You just heard a story from somebody who told them a story, who told them a story, who told them a story, but you don't really know these people at all, you know? And it goes into like celebrity stuff too, where it's like we picture celebrities being a certain way because we associate them with roles, but that's not who they actually are. It's wild, man. Anyways, I don't want to rant too long about this episode. I want to say though, overall, season 4 I didn't like quite as much as seasons 2 and 3. Maybe season 1 it's comparable. I think that the time skip in season 4 was a great idea, but I think that the detriment of the show Barry is that there are only 8 episodes per season and only 30 minutes per episode. And I felt like season 4 was very, very ambitious with the idea of just having Barry in prison for the first couple episodes to begin with, and then doing the time skip. I really felt like the length of the series, only 8 episodes, really hurt it because we didn't really have enough time to like fully transition, you know, into the time skip. And I felt like that brought it down a little bit. I thought like it built up a lot of momentum, and then it went down for a little bit, and then it started to come back a bit at the ending, but it felt a little disjointed because of that. My only other criticism also would be with Janice's dad. I wanted to see a little bit more with his character and Barry interacting, you know, because he's built up to be this amazing interrogator that made somebody kill themselves while interrogating them before. But when he has Barry, we only get like a little bit of it. And I wanted more of an interaction. I wanted more of a conversation between them. So I was hoping for a little bit more there. And then obviously, I mean, at the end, at the final episode, we don't really get to see Barry, you know, be Barry, the Barry that we know. And I didn't want to see him just like action movie hero his way into Hank's fortress. But it does feel a little bit like we didn't quite get enough Barry, you know what I mean, in the final season. He's also a lot more silent. You know, he doesn't have as many moments to kind of like truly, really showcase his character quite as much, I don't think, in season 4 as opposed to the others, other than in the first couple episodes. I think the first couple episodes where he's in prison, I think that was really cool, like getting into his psyche. But I think in the last couple episodes, the episode before this one, we didn't really. He was being interrogated in the very beginning, but he was really out of it. And then in this episode, he kind of had a few lines to himself about God and religion and protecting him and stuff, but we didn't really get a lot of him. And I just wanted a little bit more of Barry in the finale of Barry. But those are very light criticisms, and they don't ruin the overall show and the overall experience. I think this show, from start to finish, was pretty great. I'm gonna miss it. I wish that we had some more episodes. I wish, especially season 4, I wish maybe we got 10 episodes instead of 8, just to get us into the momentum a little bit more. It just, like, it felt like it started and then it was just over so quick. You know what I mean? But anyways, I've ranted long enough. I thought this final episode was great. I really, really enjoyed it. And let me know what you guys think. If you guys have been watching Barry, if you've been keeping up with it, if you've watched the final episode, let me know what you think down below. I know I probably ranted, and this video probably could have benefited from more quick cut editing. I'm sorry about that. Anyways, let me know what you guys think down below. Leave your thoughts, comments, ideas about it. Give the video a like. Help it out in the algorithm if you can. Also, if you want to support the channel on a deeper level, I do have a merch store, Patreon, channel memberships. All that is linked down below. Other than that, guys, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.